So then we are back with a more understanding from the time of the second tabernacle services that we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find then a layer of understanding related with the spring feast, autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. And then this particular layer is also combined with Yeshayahu 1:8, where then the translators of the scripture did not know what they were doing. And then for some reason they decide to use chapter 1:8 far away from the 61st, and they are related. Obviously those translators were ignorant. And then it's our task these days then refurbish the instructions and make sure then the layers are done properly. No longer chapters or verses, but then combination of then layers of understanding from the time of Moshe, prophets, and also the revelations of Galah in the spring feast, in autumn feast, and post-autumn feast. These must be layered properly. The entire translation of the scriptures is out of synchronism with the very core of the times and the seasons. So then, we find ourselves then, while doing this, obviously the nations are kind of clinging themselves to power, and they try to control the market, they try to control the trade of the world, and they can't. So then, let's evaluate then what was then during the time of the Ishmael. Pure trade amongst the nations. This is what is returning. So then, as far as the most prominent country with a great future, Australia and its neighbor New Zealand, those are the best places on this planet at the moment besides China, Soviet Union, and Africa. It's the best place in the world. They have a great future. They have a great geographical area. They understand then the Dragon Mart is the trading post of the Chinese overseas. There is a Dragon Mart in Dubai, Mideast. There is a Dragon Mart then in Cancun, providing then at least of the Central Americas with trade from China. Obviously requires yet South America, North America. Canadian government, very wisely, they are linking up with China also. And then obviously the South Pacific. And most definitely then India having their own Dragon Mart. So then what can we understand of this system? Let's then understand firstly what Daniel has said. The whole understanding, the structure, the events, the flow of events, they come from the instructions. There is no personal interpretation of any of these topics other than per the flow of events explained already by the prophets. So we can't interpret the instructions on our own. That's why very wisely the Creator decided of having then layers of understanding of each time and season throughout generations. So then no person takes any topic outside of the layerings because those must match. It's a form of security of the scripture. Daniel then, during his time of service of the Gentiles, he worked for the Gentiles most of his life. Then he explained the 11th chapter regarding the time of the restoration period. What Daniel then said regarding the 11th chapter, Yeshayahu also mentioned regarding then the restoration of the holy cities. So then the 61st chapter of Yeshayahu lines up with Daniel the 11th. Then you find sections of the Galah 1:8, for instance, related with then the Messiah saying, "Come out of them, my people, and resume the second tabernacle services." This is what the Messiah said in chapter 1:8 of Galah. He then explained they should become loyal and do what the Messiah told them to do and observe. So each of those layers must be layered properly. So then, we find ourselves then studying this time then the importance of the South Pacific trading post. We find a very privileged area where then the islands then they get served with logistics. So then, this is not yet important as understanding the whole content as far as global wise understanding of the dragon. The dragon must be in every system, every computer, every city, every nation of this entire world. It's not a bad term. It's a term meaning precision. That's what it is. Not above, not below. Precision. Since we are not speaking of tabernacling, outside of tabernacling is the dragon. No person is above the dragon outside of tabernacling. So then, we find ourselves then waiting for the G20 visit in the Soviet Union. If you read then the website of the G20, you understand infrastructure, work reliability. You find then areas of improvement. And these, if you combine then with the objectives of China, infrastructure, and then China making deals with Africa, obviously, they are part of the BRICS, then you find China itself then preparing even further for the new system. Although they have the system already loaded up, but it's not the time for it yet. Then you find, obviously, the Soviet Union, the enforcer of those orders then given by China related with their partners. But then we are talking about the physical Dragon Mart. At the moment, Dubai and then Cancun. Very shortly, for instance, if Mr. Tony of Australia wants to become Prime Minister, obviously he would visit Mexico. He would try then over there, get a visit with the President of Mexico, Mr. Nieto, and then take a trip over there, and then take a tour of the Dragon Mart. If he do this, or if he does this, then obviously he will have then the spirit of trade. It is incredible the power of the trade of this time. If he takes a trip over there, he will to return changed. If Tony has this plan of having implementation of Dragon Mart on Australia, he would get the prime ministership instantly. Because jobs generated instantly, construction, logistics, not only this, but then the refinery must be upgraded. Not only this, but then mining. The islands around, they want to do mining themselves. But then, if you understand the Dragon Mart, you understand the trading post as a reference for those ships coming from China, loaded with materials, and then Australia becoming a distribution center of the South Pacific. And then generates a whole section of jobs. Construction, then obviously stores, and then shops, and then hotels, and then combining with the tourism. But doesn't stop there. Then it has to have then an airstrip only for the freighters. More jobs. Not only this, but depots for the storage of those parcels. Not only for instance, FedEx, UPS, DHL, and then more companies yet coming up. Because the best secure market of the future is logistics. The Messiah said very precisely, in the freighters of the earth. So then the best market is logistic. So if he takes this trip over there in Mexico, with the okay from the President of Mexico, and then would go through those areas of the Dragon Mart, the aerial view, plus then the 30% already completed, he would return a changed man. He would understand the scripture. He would understand what the Messiah has said from tabernacling and the freighters of the earth. The first impact he will to have when he get there is then the words of the Messiah in the freighters of the earth. Because it's in the very core of trade. And then imagine the implementation of this huge market system in South Pacific. Instantly he would get the prime ministership because it is related mostly More than 90% pure jobs. There are a few areas, for instance, of finding a place for an airstrip for the freighters, upgradation of the ports, some sort of environmental report involved, but it's pure job. Jobs everywhere, construction, logistics, and mechanics, and truckers, and ships, and tourism, and more hotels. And then under the sea mining, such as PNG, they have projects over there of underwater mining. But then it has to have a group of people to do then the report and then come out with a plan of the extraction of these riches and then the smeltering. And as these post-Panamax ships, they come from China, obviously they would return with raw materials, but not raw material as we know of. They would be already smeltered and pre-ready for usage in China. So then these skirmishes of these people talking and making novel out of it, it's not time for it. The time is very short. September is coming very fast. So then, amongst the islanders, for instance in the north, Port Moresby, and what it would do to the economy of Papua New Guinea, for instance, they are also hurting over there very bad in terms of jobs. They want more jobs. They want to do mining underwater. But then a deal with Australia and those islands around so they can do their mining and ships would bring them to Australia, do the smeltering. Australia has lots of coal. They can smelt it over there and have those products ready when those post-Panamax ships, they come. They can return loaded with materials, thus providing then the islanders with what they want, parcels, and then freighters, and then fuel, and then depots, and then deliveries. Jobs everywhere. But then the problem is, the nations, they are trying to cling to the old ways of then control the market, control the people, and trying to control the people via centralized banking, and no longer works. It won't work. Because this time of the dragon is for decentralization. It's placing the world at liberty to do trade. It won't work because the West is not in the midst of it. How do we find this? China always promotes direct trade. This means trading with the nations outside of USD. Direct trade. The wish of the dragon is direct trade. So who is pushing for USD? USD is not in the 11th chapter of Daniel. It's not part of the restoration period. These means must decentralize and wilt, because China already has a deal with Switzerland. From then on, the entire Europe is going to be linked up with China. And then the Americas also must. So then the world is becoming a place where then we find the Messiah explaining then from tabernacling and the freighters of the earth. And frankincense and silk and what then those items the Messiah was explaining when he saw from tabernacling the future, freighters have the authority. So let's understand very perfectly and very precisely, because the Greco-Roman translation of the scripture is a pure lie. They use this scoundrelized scripture to mesmerize the people to get their way. The governments of this world want to control the people. So they stole those documents from the holy cities and they scoundrelized for themselves. Then you find the Pope asking for money. For instance, with a very flat face, he asked Brazil to give them 26 times 6 digits in pounds. The Pope asking for money because the Vatican is bankrupt. But he has no shame in the face. You know, he doesn't care if it's against the Constitution. So then what would it be like for our Muslim brothers or the Islamic people? Oh, they should go over there in Brazil and ask for money. So even the Pope, he lost the shame on his face, and he's asking directly for those leaders. He's asking for money because Vatican is broken. Oh, so let's then the mosques ask for money. They can go over there in Brazil and ask for money, and they will get it. So we are during the time where then people, they lost absolutely the fear of understanding what is normal. It's absolutely ridiculous for a religious leader where then religion never brings peace. It's always war, always lies and cheats, and then religion has nothing to do with trade, yet a leader of a religion asking for money. And it's against the Constitution. No religious leader has the right of asking for money. Not from the government. But the Pope is a kind of an open scoundrel. He asks for money if it's against the Constitution or not. Why didn't he ask for money then in Argentina? That's where he's from Argentina. Should I ask then the lady over there, the president, if I ask for money? Now Brazil is already scoundrelized because of this World Cup. They are absolutely scoundrelizing the nation because of it. They are stealing. They are absolutely dirty politics. That's why England would do us a favor if they could remove the World Cup from Brazil and have them hosted in England. It would be a great start for them. So the world has lost its ability of understanding what is normal and what not. You find the Greco-Roman translation of the scripture an absolutely piece of crap. It doesn't exist. It was invented. Then the very leader that should be conscientious of costs, because Vatican is a non-profit organization. They don't work. They are lazy. They are religious scoundrels. But then they go around asking for money. Incredible. Those people that should be then promoting work ethics is the very people that is scoundrelized the entire world. But we are no longer during the time of scoundrelization as during the time of the 1,000 years of the seat. We are during the time of the dragon. That's why then these organizations are absolutely crazy in trying to get control, because they can't put up with it anymore. They understand they lost. It's time for direct trade via computer, decentralized. So the best place of this planet besides those designers is then Australia. They have absolutely secured the future if they are smart. And Cancun is big. Let's make sure then when these people they come together and trying to hold on to power, it won't. Simply won't. The Messiah was never wrong, and he is not wrong, and he won't be wrong. The Creator never has made a mistake, and won't be the first time. So then we find the nations trying to come together and then repeating Daniel the 3rd chapter, the entire statue of gold. The 11th chapter of Daniel explains the time of the restoration period, and those designers were already given. East, north, and south. You don't find the west anymore, and neither other places. But they wanted then the statue of gold, don't they? So they are trying to understand what it means then, the bell and the dragon. This fight going on with China in direct trade then versus then the West and their companions, and they try to impose their authority, imposing, then spying around, control the people, and then trying then verify what they can do with emails, with the telephones, and trying to control the people. And then the dragon, no, we're going to do direct trade. So we are during the time of a very hard Cold War, where then governments are trying to spy on each other, and neither of them have the authority, because the authority was removed from governments. At the moment, government-wise, those holding the authority via government yet is China, Soviet Union, and Africa. Those are holding power via government. When the system of the dragon becomes available, then is direct trade, and then the freighters take over. Shortly after, then is shifted then to Ishmaelites. By then the autumn feast is very near. But then let's understand during this time where then the physical location of the dragon mart is extremely important. Finding geographical areas for the dragon mart. Dubai, Middle East is already there. You find in Cancun, the Central Americas already taken. Obviously the South Pacific in Australia. Then we find in Brazil, because it has the most infrastructure places and very reliable. Then you find the Canadian government linking up with China. And then India. Those would be then without the help from the prophet, not yet available from the holy city, would be the obvious. When these places then are taken and then constructed and then lined up, freighters, they have their places, then depots, and then fuel, and organized, then comes the dragon online. Obviously, because distribution centers are for the purposes of doing trade online. You have to combine them both. When those are combined and then tested, then obviously from this time until then the Messiah may speak then the words he spoke. Why may? Because could be this time, in a technical understanding after 09, Galah or Revelation 1:8, the Messiah already speaks. Come out of the system and resume the holy services. When those physical places are then organized, then the system becomes available worldwide via computer. Depending on what part of the world you are at, you receive then those products from those distribution centers nearest to you. So if the governments, other than those who are the designers, they think they can come up with their schemes, it's not going to work. Watch then the 1,000 years of deceit. Only a fact regarding this Bilderberg group shows you the scoundrelization and then the level of it. Holy Tabernacling was substituted by a group of scoundrels. The entire world became a pit of deceit. And was deceit ever since the cities were destroyed. But it's no longer deceit, it's precision. Time of the dragon. Bilderberg group is no longer required. But they are trying very hard on their own, with their own schemes, to do Daniel the 3rd chapter. The nature of human beings. They try to do with their own strength and then won't work. Did it work for King of Babylon? No, it didn't. Is it going to work in this world? No. It's a waste of time. The Messiah said the whole authority was given to him in heaven and the earth. Try to understand the words of the Messiah. The authority was given to him in heaven and also in the earth. The Messiah gives to whomever he wants. And the determination from heaven was the authority was given to the freighters. Because we are speaking of the Gentile level. The stick of authority of the Ishmaelites must be restored. And there is obviously a set of events. After September, the world would become more understandable. But the Dragon Mart is the focus at the moment. It's the physical section of the dragon related with the trade, direct trade. Dragon Mart. Dragon Mart then in Cancun, Dragon Mart in Brazil, Dragon Mart maybe in Canada, up north where it links up with the Soviet Union, and obviously India and then South Pacific. Then the distribution centers are in place, comes then the online system. Then every trade online as we know of, each of them must be linked up with a dragon. Must be worldwide. No exception. Then when we hear the Messiah speaking in the 20th chapter of Galah, and the serpent, and the dragon, and the deceiver, and the destroyer. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.